What would you do with $1 billion? That is the big question we're asking in today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Vault, a podcast devoted to exploring the secrets to building wealth. I'm your host, Jen. And while it can be a fun and interesting question to ask yourself, it is a question worth asking. What would you really do with $1 billion? We all want to be financially wealthy. That's one of the reasons you're listening to this podcast. And we all believe that financial wealth is within reach. And it is, if you put in the work. As we've said in previous episodes, the real path to financial wealth is to create something, to build something and monetize it. The probability that you will become a billionaire in your lifetime is, to be honest, pretty minimal. It rounds to zero. As of March 2026, there were 3,428 billionaires in the world, controlling total wealth of about $20.1 trillion. Well, there are about 8.3 billion people in the world. So, you do the math. About 97% of the world's total wealth is controlled by the rest of us, non-billionaires. But again, the vast majority of that wealth is still controlled by millionaires. Very little wealth is held by those who are not considered wealthy. The top 1% richest individuals in the world own about 46% of the entire world's wealth. Nearly half. If you're not already pretty far along the path to billionaire status, if you don't already have a few $100 million in the bank, then chances are you probably won't cross that mark in your lifetime. Sorry, that's just reality. That being said, it's still a good question to ask, and a great mental exercise, no matter what your financial situation. Being financially wealthy, for each individual, doesn't necessarily mean becoming a billionaire. What does wealthy mean for you? Would a net worth of $5 million be all you really need? What about $10 million? Certainly $100 million is more money than you'll ever really need, and probably out of reach anyway. But building a net worth of a few $1,000,000 over a lifetime is definitely attainable for just about anyone. We can all agree that $1 billion is far more money than anyone needs in this world. At that point, money is essentially no object. $1 billion is a very large number, almost unfathomable for one person. Every want, need, desire, anything is within reach. But it's still a good question to ask, as we explore the pursuit and the path to wealth. What would you do if you had $1 billion? What would you do if money were simply no object? We all somewhat blindly know that we want to become wealthy. It's part of our programming, and the pursuit of money consumes the world around us. We all go throughout our days, seeking money and looking for opportunities to increase our financial worth. And most of us lament the fact that we're not wealthy. Someone has a bigger house than us. Someone drives a nicer car. We don't want to go to work. We'd rather be on a yacht in the south of France, sipping champagne. Why do we want to be wealthy? Well, sure, we don't enjoy going to our jobs each day. And we have bills to pay, and so we have to earn money. If we only had more money. Where are you in your life? Where are you on the path to wealth? What if you had made better financial decisions earlier in life? Why did you not prioritize building a business enterprise? Or building a portfolio of investable assets? Why did you not build streams of passive income years ago? Just imagine, if you had made better financial decisions earlier in life, you'd be far better off today. And you could be reaping the rewards of work you did in the past. But we don't have time machines. So the real question is, why are you not making those better financial decisions today? Does your future self love you for what you're doing today? Many people, as they grow older, often say, if I knew I would live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. The same rings true for financial health, and really all the pillars of wealth, but certainly for financial wealth. You may not be able to talk to your younger self, and it makes no sense to wish you had made better financial decisions in the past. But you can learn from your mistakes, and you can learn from your experiences over your lifetime, and take lessons from others. And it does make sense to make better financial decisions today. You can build something. You can build a business or start a company. You can start building a portfolio of investable assets. You can invest. You can develop streams of passive income. $1 billion is a pretty lofty number. Let's begin this exercise with something a little more practical, a little more realistic. What would you do if $1,000 extra appeared in your bank account? What about 10,000? What about 100,000 extra dollars? These numbers make the exercise a little more real. $1 billion is an ethereal number. But 1,000? 10,000? That's a little easier to start with. When you hear someone win $1,000 on the radio, they often say they're going to pay off a credit card, or buy someone a gift, or take a short vacation. Paying off debt is the most common response to receiving a few thousand extra dollars. To get rid of a bill, and to stop high interest from accumulating. So, that begs the question: why are most people carrying any high-interest, undesirable debt? And why are people not taking every spare dollar that comes their way and paying off this debt to improve their financial situation? That's a bit of a rhetorical question, but it does make you think. Another very common response is, put money towards savings, or into an emergency fund. Provide yourself a safety net. Again, somewhat rhetorically, why do most people not have money in savings? Why don't they have an emergency fund? $1,000 extra is, in all reality, not that hard to come by. It may just take a little extra work, but $1,000 extra is definitely within reach for most everybody. It's not life-changing money. As you move to $10,000 extra, people start to respond with more aspirational financial goals. After debt, or savings, or needed car repairs, or helping a family member, people start to say they'd put money toward education, or put money toward investments, or toward retirement. Once you move past very basic financial needs, you start to get the beginnings of thoughts of wealth creation. And as you move toward the idea of an extra $100,000, you really get people thinking about investments, upgrading an aspect of their living situation, or even starting a small business. And then ask people and yourself, what if you had $1 million, or an extra $1 million? Now you've moved into the realms of financial security and personal fulfillment. People talk of buying a nice home, investing for the future or for future generations, or building a business enterprise, or traveling comfortably, or donating to charity, or quitting their jobs to pursue their passions in life. And then comes the real question. What would you do with $1 billion? For most of us, that means, what would you do if money simply were no object? Take a moment and ponder that question. What would you do with $1 billion? Now we've truly moved to talk about aspirational wealth. People no longer respond with paying off debt or investing for the future. With $1 billion, all those lower-level financial problems simply do not exist. Common responses, instead, focus on establishing and maintaining long-term family wealth, or simple living, and focusing on long-term health and learning, or achieving life goals, or charitable giving. But not just giving money away. Because if you give $1 billion away, then what are you left with? Instead, people talk about establishing endowments so that the money can be invested, and so that the charitable giving can continue forever. And that way, the money can have a more real, lasting impact. The same goes for establishing portfolios of investable assets, or creating business enterprises, or establishing streams of passive income, all to establish and maintain long-term, generational legacy wealth. And if you had $1 billion, the way you would spend your time is likely very different than the way you spend it now. You certainly wouldn't go to a job. You wouldn't trade your time for money. Your time is far too valuable for that. You would focus on important things, things that really matter. You can see that the responses to the question, as we move from $1,000 to $1 billion, change drastically. From basic day-to-day financial needs to ambitious, idealistic, larger thoughts about the world and about existence. As we said, while $1 billion is out of reach for most of us, it's still a good question to ask yourself. It's a great mental exercise. It's a great thought experiment. And it's a good question to ask yourself each and every day. As you move forward on your journey toward building wealth, as financial wealth becomes more and more real to you, it's important to understand what the money means to you. Because it is just money. And your relationship with money will change, and your responses to this question will change over time. Ask yourself a few more questions. Knowing that $1 billion is likely out of reach in your lifetime, is there a major difference to you and how you live your life between $1 billion and, let's say, $1 million, or just a few million dollars? Is being immensely financially wealthy your true goal, or is it a means to something else? Do you have a different life purpose? What number do you really need to live the life you want? After you've met all your basic financial needs, and after you've achieved a level of comfort, what do you really want to achieve with your wealth? Establishing family wealth and helping others, doing some good in the world, are usually at the top of the list. Using your wealth and leveraging it to create greater wealth and greater benefit is usually a top priority of the truly wealthy. And if how you spent your time, your day-to-day, would change drastically, what's stopping you from making that change today? What's stopping you from focusing on the really important things in life? So really think about it. What would you actually do with an incredible amount of money? What would you do with $1 billion? Try to answer that question today. And continue to ask yourself that question regularly as you continue on your path to wealth and success. It might be interesting to see how your responses change over time, and as your financial situation evolves. What is your real reason for pursuing great financial wealth? And how much do you really need? Financial wealth may indeed be in your future. And while that is so, time and other factors are working against you. What can you achieve through other means? How can you leverage your other pillars of wealth? Thank you for listening to this episode of The Vault. Asking yourself what you do with $1 billion helps to put your pursuit of wealth into perspective. Be sure to subscribe and follow to receive new episodes as they are posted. Be sure to share this episode and this podcast with your friends and colleagues and anyone else who is on the path to building wealth. Thank you for listening to The Vault.